We are now live.
Hey, what's up, you guys?
Howdy, howdy,
Welcome
hey.
back.
Me.
Mo.
Exactly. All right, hello and welcome to this episode of the Star Wars Generations podcast. Today we are again taking you deep into the depths of the Star Wars archives. We're going into the vintage section of Star Wars as it is listed on your Star Wars Disney Plus app or whatever, however you watch it. And one of the things you will find there is the Droid's Adventure. Friends, this was the first ever animated show. It was not the first Star Wars property on TV, as that was the holiday special that we have
Ooh,
talked about once and will now never be discussed again.
I still want to
Uh,
watch it.
oh, you still haven't seen it?
I haven't seen it.
Okay, no, we may make it a holiday tradition. Is that we're going to watch it and drink some eggnog and roast it together. That'll be
I
fun.
would like that.
All right, cool. We're going to make that happen. But back to this. Droid Adventures was one of the first shows we ever got. It is. I don't expect you to have seen it, and we're not going to talk too much about like plot points because there kind of isn't really one. It's it's basically
episodic.
Say again?
It's episodic.
Yeah, it's episodic, and actually kind of like what we get with the Clone Wars. The episodes kind of have 3 or 4 main arcs, and it is about C-3PO and R2-D2 before they join up with Princess Leia. So this is all before A New Hope. And it is not canonical anymore because it, all the stuff about like them getting their mind wiped and stuff like that at the end of Rebels or Rogue One or something like that, where that gets mentioned. I forget what it is, but like that's not existing. But mostly mostly this was a fun way to sell some toys and to like introduce the idea of animation. And to like give little kids a way to have more time with C-3PO and R2-D2. And it is very much a kid's show, but I think it's pretty cute. I think I had kind of a nostalgia for it because it's very much the 80s animation style. Like if you've watched original He-Man or She-Ra or Gummy Bears or like things like that, it is very much that kind of animation style. It looks very amateurish to us today, but I'm sure at the time felt like, oh my God, can you believe they can do this? And the plot lines are pretty silly. And the characters are all fairly two-dimensional, and the plot lines are pretty obvious, but it's, it's a fun little adventure through the world at that time of Star Wars and watching our heroes basically just like have the same adventure again and again and again. What was your kind of introduction to it?
I had literally never heard of it until you put it in the group chat like a week ago.
Okay, cool.
I had no idea. And boy, what a thrill it was, let me tell you.
I'm
Yesterday,
sure.
I just got baked and just fucking watched the entire show while I was cleaning my apartment.
Okay.
And now that little like theme song is just like stuck in my head. I loved it. I loved every second. And like I haven't watched too many old cartoons, so I'm not really used to that style.
Yeah.
So it did kind of get me. There was a few times I'm like, what the fuck kind of emotion could this possibly be portraying right now? But I enjoyed it because of that.
I feel like my sobriety may have been a big part of why I was not able to find the joy in it. But it was like, I was doing a big spring cleaning project, and so I had it on while I was like doing dishes and like certain laundry and stuff like that. And there were like definitely fun moments. The theme song is pretty baller.
Pretty good.
Very on the nose. I think it's like the lyrics are like, we're going on an adventure, but we have these man-made brains that keep getting us into trouble. And it's I think just kind of like, I'm not saying there's any like great insights into it, but like it's fun to see more of them being who they are. The first main plot arc is, in all of it, we have this sort of definitely like anti-Empire feeling. A couple of times C-3PO reveals that he wants to be a freedom fighter too, and that he has the bravery to go fight the Empire. So that part doesn't quite line up with the rest of the canonical appearances of Mr. C-3PO. But like, so at first they're mostly wrapped up with this group of like, this is pre-pod racing. Like this is made years before pod racing, but clearly like they were already having the idea of there being these like racers of like land-based, vehicles.
Yeah.
And it kind of very much like Resistance. They get kind of wrapped up with a group that of like kind of ne'er-do-wells who are trying to build a great racer. And then they have like, the Empire itself isn't directly involved, but there's a couple other like major crime bosses who are screwing with them. We get Boba Fett. Boba Fett, who of course first appeared in the holiday special. So you have still not seen his origin story. We'll get that for you at some point.
Actually, when I hung out with Alex once, he specifically made me watch that part, and I was like, "Can we watch the holiday special?" He was like, "No, I won't watch that, but we will watch this like 10-minute clip." I was like, "Okay."
You haven't seen Life Day. This is truly tragic.
I know.
But yeah, so Boba Fett gets involved. That's the first kind of main plot, and then like they get sold. Basically, one thing we are very much reminded of this is that like slavery of droids is just very much the thing, and C-3PO and R2-D2 are very much like, nope, we've got a new master now. This is great, and we're not supposed to be questioning that at all. Which is, I'm sure, as a 10-year-old, I would not have minded in the slightest.
Yeah.
But then they go through all those adventures, and then they get kind of teamed up with this. It felt to me like a Princess and the Frog storyline, because they basically get teamed up with this guy who no one wants to help, and he doesn't speak, and he doesn't interact with anyone. But then they find out that he actually is he's the prince of some like, big planet, and they don't have to kiss him, but they basically have to like help him find himself again. And then there's lots of adventures with him.
Yeah.
And then that's about where I stopped watching, because I wasn't able to get through the first season entirely. So what was the third kind of big plot arc?
The third plot arc, it was about this guy named Mungo, which was crazy. Mungo, excuse me. Mungo, okay. It was like Bowel or I can't. I didn't like it that much. It was like he's just like an adventurer. His dad owns like some shipping merchant company or whatever. It's like these famous people, and he's trying to find the source of what's like called a rune stone. So like finding the source of some fancy thing to get rich. I don't know. It was weird. I didn't like it as much as the others. There was still some fun characters. There was more racing. But this time it was on like elope type things, like kind of animals. And there was this really badass character. Don't remember her name. Sorry. It was really funny. She's wearing like a Lola Bunny style, like basketball, like shorts and everything. Maybe like new Lola Bunny, like actual basketball shorts, not like the booty shorts. But I was like, why is she wearing basketball gear? But okay, like go off, because she's an athlete.
I feel like we just have to remember that this is kind of like, if you think of like your favorite like movie or TV show, and you get to watch like when the people first sat down and threw out a lot of ideas, and a lot of the ideas are terrible, but you see the germination of original things. For example, in one of those plot arcs, one of the minor characters, but one who gets name dropped a bunch, is Kylo Ren.
Kybo
Ren. Yeah, Kybo Ren.
His name is Kybo Ren Cha, and for some reason, after the first episode, we've dropped the Cha, and now it's
he's just called Kybo Ren.
I was like, okay.
I'm sure that was a character who like Lucas thought was going to take off, or he always liked that name because no, of course he didn't make the sequels, but like someone clearly was aware of the character of Kybo when they named Kylo Ren. So I did think that was kind of fun connection. And then in season 2, do we ever actually get involved with the Empire or the Rebellion itself, or is it always them kind of on the Outer Rim's peripheries?
I'm sorry, season 2?
Oh, yeah, okay. So neither one of us watched that. That's fine. There were 2 seasons.
I thought there was oh shit. Okay, yeah, no way I was going to body that entire series yesterday.
I
didn't even realize that.
Because this isn't like the micro series. Like it's each season is 13 episodes, and the episodes are half an hour. So like that's like 4.5 hours is one season. I was like, you watched this for 9 hours? That is impressive.
There's only one episode in season 2, and it's 47 minutes long.
Oh, well, now we really seem like jackasses for not having watched it.
Right? I'm like, damn, am I a dick?
Anyway, we did our best. This is definitely going to be a micro episode, so we're not going to have too much to say about it. But so what were some of your kind of favorite dynamics in the show?
I really liked the middle story that we got with these characters, Jan and Jess. Jan is a man. And Jess, her name was Jessica, spelled fancy, of course, because this is Star Wars.
Probably a 3 for one of the S's,
Correct. But yeah, I kind of liked their storyline because it was the one connected with that prince. And it was kind of similar to Luke's story of like, oh, I'm a poor farmer trying to make things work. And my uncle has sent me to purchase some like a droid to help. And instead he purchases an android, which they then find out R2 scans, and R2's like, yo, that's full organic.
Right.
And they were like, what? So then they kind of nurse this guy back to health. And at first his uncle, what was his name? His uncle, it was like Uncle Grungy. That was it. Grungy? I don't know.
I think it's Gruddy. Yeah, it's one of those two.
Something so funny. But he was like, fuck this guy. I don't want to have to feed him too. And then as it turns out, the like 8-foot tall guy is super strong and helpful. And he was like, actually, maybe he can stay.
Yeah.
And then they find out he's a prince. And then Jan, I think, and Jess, yeah, they all then travel to his planet to help him like take it back, because he had, this was so funny. I was like, is this the movie Aladdin? Because he said like a spell was put over me by like an evil vizier. And then the moment they showed the evil vizier, I'm like, bitch, that's Jafar. Like, you got the red and black and everything. That's just Jafar. Like, well, I thought it was pretty funny.
On the one hand, we're about 10 years before Aladdin comes out. On the other hand, this might break your little heart, but the movie Aladdin, as good as some of it was, may have dealt with some fairly, common stereotypes and tropes. And so the look of Jafar was not completely original for the time.
I suppose.
I know.
I suppose you're very right.
But yeah, no, it's definitely like, yeah, it had Frog Prince aspects. It had Aladdin aspects. It was definitely all this weird magic that we never deal with again. But yeah, it was just kind of like a fun little story. Like, I think that storyline is probably the one I was the most invested in.
Me too. Yeah, I liked that one a lot.
What did you think of C-3PO wanting to be a freedom fighter?
I don't even know what was going on with 3PO in this. He was just, my guy was all over the place. I mean, in the first arc, I feel like he's actually, no, I can't figure it out. Because like you said, he's like a freedom fighter. He's like, let's get it. And then he continues to complain the entire time about how he's not qualified and he doesn't want to be there. So I feel like it's still very typical 3PO, to be honest with you.
Yeah, he just has these little delusions of grandeur from time to time.
It's just, the problem is this came out in what, like the 70s, right?
No,
80s?
this is like, I think this comes out after Return of the Jedi. So yeah, I think it's 85 or 86.
Okay, my bad. This came out in like the 80s, and 3PO is the only one who like communicates. So obviously R2, as we know, is going to be the one who's like, let's fucking get it. But there's no way for them to portray that, or that they had like figured out yet.
Yeah, like always, it's beeps and boops, and we have like our characters responding to what R2 says, and so we can kind of get the gist of it, but we never actually know exactly what words R2 has said.
Yeah. I still like to believe that the beeps and boops aren't necessarily about him being a droid. It's just that he's actually cussing the entire time.
And then he's got like a language filter on him.
Exactly.
That makes sense, because like Chopper is probably similar, but sometimes Chopper is just using like a weird electronic voice to actually say words. So
Chopper's like breaking through.
Yeah.
He's a hacker.
He's able to do it. Yeah. So I'm trying to think if there's anything more to this is we both have a lot going on. We're recording this episode right after I had a medical procedure because this is going to be kind of a mini-sode. But any other last things you want, not last things, but any of the kind of dynamics of the show you wanted to talk about?
Yes. First of all, we get Sai Snoodles.
Yes.
Ooh, mama. Finally, I see her origin, and she looking bad as ever. And so she's like performing, I don't remember what planet at all, but she's performing in something that's very similar to like Jabba's palace. And guess who's also there?
Just for anyone who doesn't know, Sai Snoodles is, we originally saw her in Return of the Jedi. She's the singer at Jabba's palace, where she has this like long mouth stalk with her lips at the end of it.
She's like a frog.
Yeah, she's like a frog, but like with a long like snout and the lips at the end, which have like really nice lipstick on them. And then like in the Clone Wars TV show, she's Zero's girlfriend and is basically like a 1920s, she was straight out of Chicago.
She's like a mob boss wife.
Yeah, mob wall kind of a thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So I loved seeing Sai. I love when they take little things from the past and make them into like bigger characters. That's a big thing for me. And then it's like the camera pans. Guess who's there? Max fucking Rebo.
Max Rebo, our boy.
Which I wish I could like transport myself better, because I actually have Max Rebo in my bedroom. He's hanging up on the wall. I got a little Max.
I like it. I don't have a Max Rebo. I should have a Max Rebo. So
get yourself a Max Rebo.
Yeah, tell me when you next leave the house. I'll get one.
Damn.
I mean from the store. Of course, I mean from the store.
One thing I thought that was interesting in like that last arc that you didn't watch with the rune stones, the bad guy like was conspiring with this guy from the Empire to try and get like noticed by the Emperor. You know, it's just like a warlord trying to be like, but look, I'm important too. Like, give me a rank or whatever. And in order to kind of like flush out our heroes, they drop like a mist over the entire valley with like this very toxic disease, which then he doses himself because he's a fucking idiot. So the warlord gets dosed. Sorry, please hold.
Go for it.
Right. And so they're explaining this disease and they're like, yeah, like it's very like silent and whatnot and but and then at the very end you vanish into nothing. I was like, I'm sorry, what the fuck?
Yeah, it's like a weird acid, like all the bodies disappear or something.
No, it literally they like turn transparent and just like fade away. Like at the end of the episode, when our antagonist is like getting screwed over by the Empire, the Admiral is like, well, you might want to go look for that vaccine yourself. And he looks and his hand is gone and he's like, like you just disappear. I thought that was so funny. I was like, could you imagine if instead of having the blue shadow virus in season 1 of Clone Wars, we got this?
Yeah. I think one thing to understand is that like I have talked in other settings. This is going to feel like a weird comparison, but I promise this is going to connect. I've talked in other settings about how like one of the reasons why it's hard to understand the logic of like ancient myths or the Bible or things like that is we don't think about how much the scientific revolution and things like that changed just like the fundamental nature of thought. And the idea that like right now we believe that it is possible for us to scientifically understand how the sun works. And like that wasn't always the case. Like we had thousands of years where humans did not believe, like the sun was just a thing that happened. And the idea of like, how does it really happen? That question just wouldn't make sense because it was just out of the thought bubble of what was happening. The comparison I'm making here is fairly recent, the idea that animation can look realistic. Like I think for a long time, there was this sense of like animation's never going to look like real life. So we're not going to even try. So we're going to do things that make no sense, but it's because it's animation. So we're all just kind of in this like third world kind of a space. Yeah. And I think like, you know, the super magic disappearing wasting disease is probably something along those kind of lines.
Probably.
So
yeah, that made me giggle. I just have some 3PO quotes here.
Yeah, please
before we go. Just two important ones. So basically, you know, we talked about this prince. They go back to his planet. They take over most of it. Then they're trying to make a treaty with like another tribal leader. And he's got this really hot daughter. And the prince like falls in love with the daughter and whatever. And then she gets kidnapped. Anyways, all that to say, she has a younger brother. And so we spend one episode just following her younger brother around, trying to figure out what he should do with his inheritance, which made me look at the show. And I was like, I get why people fucking hate this. Like, I get it now because I don't want to be watching this right now. But it was fine because I was bleaching my hair, so I was busy anyways.
That to me was like the definition of a filler episode. Like it really felt like they were like, we don't know what to do with this main plot. We want to stretch it out a little bit. Let's just have we have this other character. Let's just have him do silly things.
Yeah, and I honestly don't even think that there was like a bridge to explain how they got from point A to point B. I mean, well, it explains like, yeah, like Jan goes off to the academy, so that's why
right,
they don't stay with him anymore. But then it's like the next episode they're just like Master Mungo, and I'm like, who the fuck is this guy?
Right,
talking about Master Mungo looks like fucking.
I think here it's also important that again, like all the stuff we think about of extended universes, like the technology just wasn't there at the time. You know, a large part of why we can think of like everything fitting together is because like today anything that happens under the name Star Wars, first, with the exception of the holiday special, and even that you can find it, but everything else is like easily available. Every single book that's ever been published is available on the internet. Every single episode of anything is available. And also there's things like Wikipedia where you can just click Cy Snoodles and it'll show you every single instance that Cy has shown up in every book, every TV show. Like, you talk about, you'd never heard of it. I was a huge Star Wars fan. This was coming out the exact same time that the Thrawn books were coming out that I was really into. And I never heard a word about this show because this was a show marketed for little kids. And, I wasn't little, but I was like, 11 or 12 by this point, probably. And just so it didn't exist in my world. And these episodes were on probably on a Sunday morning or maybe a Wednesday afternoon, who knows? And then they were gone. So there was just a lot more freedom to like throw random crap at the wall in these shows because there was no sense of like that the people reading like the EU books are going to care about, but that doesn't line up with what happened in the show, or like the people playing the Star Wars role-playing game,
Yeah.
There was no sense of like we would all connect this because we didn't have any ability to do that. So to me, it's fun watching this stuff. And when you realize how zany it is, it's not because they were thinking of this as an extended universe in the slightest.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that is really interesting. It's like they were kind of like throwaway episodes. It's like, well, there's no sense of permanence, really. Like maybe someone records it, but that's interesting.
Yeah.
Anyways, back to this little bitch. This little kid brother bitch. I have money. I want to buy nice things. Anyways, he also has this little dog, right? Or animal of some kind. And it like comes running out, and I think it's like jumping all over 3PO or whatever. And 3PO's like, oh my God, I'm being attacked. Like, get this away from me. And the boy's like, no, this is like my dog. He's like a very rare like type of a thing. And 3PO looks at the boy. He goes, then I suggest you put him on a leash before he becomes even more rare. And I was
He's
like,
the most threatening 3PO ever was. Like,
I suggest you put him on a leash before he becomes more rare. Wow. To say that to a child.
that was pretty intense. Like, you expect like the dog attacks R2 and R2 makes some angry beeps and 3PO's like, don't say that to a child.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I remember hearing that and being like, whoa, this is before we've really solidified exactly who 3PO is,
Yeah, it made me laugh. And then my other little 3PO quote was just like, in that first episode, I think it was, when he was being convinced to help out, he was trying to bait a wall gun into like shooting something. And so he's like standing in front of the thing and he goes, I must be out of my mental capacities.
It's so good. It was so good.
Yeah, there was a lot of good stuff, but like I said at the top of the show, I was high and busy when I did this, so I didn't write down all the quotes, but a few of the ones that popped out, I was like, I gotta.
That's fair. And yeah, I do think that's a good description of the show. Like, to me, it's not Star Wars canon. There's nothing about it that nothing in this made me rethink the Force in some new way.
No.
It does kind of reinforce the idea of like droids are treated pretty badly in this universe. But I don't think that's what they were going for. But it's an interesting way of showing like just how like little regard they had for it. But it is fun. It's, if you're really just like, I need every piece of Star Wars lore that I can ever, capture, watch it. Because it's only like 4.5 hours plus a 47-minute episode that might be like the most great thing that ever made. And maybe that's the story of how they get to like Captain Antilles, but we didn't see it, so we can't tell you.
We wouldn't know. I mean, I think
we'll get Alex to watch just that, because as I'll include a little note at the end of this, Alex did not watch the show. That's why he's not on this episode.
Shame.
So maybe we'll have Alex take the bullet and watch season 2.
Ugh.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Aaron. This has been great. Thank you to our listeners. No bonus episode today. This is kind of just a little mini-sode to have fun with. Like I said, I'm having a major medical procedure, so this was kind of a shortened week. But thank you on behalf of both of us. Live long and prosper.
I must be out of my mental capacities.
So it must be Tuesday.
It must be a Tuesday.